Hey guys, welcome to an interesting video on Wild Rift. So today we are back with a full AP Rakan updated complete guide. But of course, as usual, before we jump into the loadout and stuff, don't forget to check out Rakan's basic guide that we just did for his skills, leveling order, combos, as well as some tips and tricks. Okay, so the first thing I want to do before we jump into the loadout, as well as the runes and such, let's first talk about why AP Rakan is good. Now, after AP Rakan got nerfed multiple times, most people started building Rakan more utility, like going for Imperial Mandate first item, etc. Now, that is still good, but I'm gonna explain why AP Rakan is good. And it starts off with looking at Rakan's skills. So first up, we have his passive. So his passive shield has 80% AP scaling. So with more AP, your shield's gonna be bigger, increasing your survivability, and of course we love that. So the next part is your Q. So your Q, as you guys can see, has a 60% AP ratio on its damage. So more AP, more damage, really logical. What else it also has is a 70% AP ratio in terms of healing. So by building more AP, you're actually more supportive because you are going to heal yourself and your allies by a larger amount. So more AP, more healing. Next up we have his W. More AP, more damage on your W. This is pretty self-explanatory. And then for your shield, your E. With more AP, you're going to have a larger shield, 65% AP scaling. So this is going to give your allies more shield. So don't forget, by building more AP, you're being more supportive because you give them a larger heal and you give them a larger shield. And finally, of course, on your ult with more AP, you get more damage. That is really logical. So aside from giving more heals and more shields with full AP, you're also going to be able to deal more damage and one-shot people. Now this is where we're going to get into the build. So how are we going to one-shot people? Well, basically with this build. So you're going to start off with a Relic Shield, because with Relic Shield you can easily just proc minions, stack it up, and be on your merry way. You don't want to go for Spectral Sickle because Rakan doesn't really poke very well. His Q is really difficult to hit. If you're just using it just for poke, you have to combo it with your other abilities, so you don't want to take Sickle. If you're into a lane that you don't want to step up to minions to Relic, you maybe want to go for Ancient Coin. Like think of, let's say you have a Draven Nautilus and you don't want to walk up because you're going to get abused by Draven, or you might get engaged on by Nautilus, for example. Then you want to take Ancient Coin. So your first item is not Proto Belt, but it's going to actually be the Mana Boots. So you want to go for Mana Boots as your first item. This is going to give you, of course, a large amount of AP, mana regen, as well as magic penetration. Of course, we're building full AP, and of course, Mana Boots, as we all know, is incredibly powerful. So after Mana Boots, you want to go for Luden's Echo as your next item. So Luden's Echo, of course, gives you AP ability, haste mana, as well as, of course, the passive that deals extra splash damage whenever you hit an ability on enemies. This, of course, is going to help you to, is the first step in, of course, you one-shotting people. So next item you're going to get after you complete Luden's Echo is you're going to complete the Proto Belt. And the Proto Belt has many uses. The first use is, of course, ulting and then Proto Belting forward to engage. And secondly is if you need to escape and get some distance, you can Proto Belt away as well. But most of the time you are going to use Proto Belt in an offensive capacity. So after you complete your Proto Belt, you want to go for Infinity Orb next. Of course, Infinity Orb gives you a large amount of AP, gives you movement speed, gives you 15 magic penetration, which is a lot, and of course it allows you to crit when enemies are low. So this is kind of the next step in terms of one-shotting an enemy. Now, by this point, you should almost be able to fully one-shot a squishy target. So with two items, depending on how fed the enemy team is, normally you can get them to really low, but not quite a one shot. So to finally get to your one shot, you go for Death Cap, and normally with the Death Cap you are able to just straight up one shot someone 100 to 0. And of course, Death Cap, pretty obvious, gives you a large amount of AP, gives you more 40% extra AP, which is gonna basically increase the AP of all of your other items. And by this point, you're just one-shotting people. And for your last item, you technically don't really need any more AP, because the goal of AP Rakan is to one-shot a squishy target. You're not trying to one-shot the enemy tank or anything like that. You're trying to one-shot the enemy squishy, so you don't really need any more AP damage. So you go for a more utility-based item, like Banshee's Veil. I think Banshee's Veil is really good because having the spell shield is really helpful, because this spell shield is going to help you like block hostile spells when you go in or things like that. Other options you have can also be the Crystalline Reflector, which gives you more armor into a very heavy AD team. Technically speaking, these are the two worser options in my opinion, but you can also go for Void Staff for magic penetration. But as I said, you're not trying to one-shot the tank, so this isn't very useful in my opinion. Or you could even go for a Morellonomicon, which is going to apply anti-heal to the enemy team. Now, this is actually useful in certain circumstances, like if there's an enemy Soraka, then when you engage onto multiple people, you will apply anti-healing onto all of them, and this can win your team the fight. So you can go for, of course, the Oblivion Orb earlier on in the game, and then you can, of course, get the full Morello as your last item if in certain matches when you need it, but I think this is quite rare. Technically speaking, a last item option you could go for is going to be Imperial Mandate as your last item, but honestly, by this point, I don't think Imperial Mandate gives you so much value because it's like literally last item at this point, so I really don't like going for Imperial Mandate as a last item. So next up, we're going to go into the runes, and the rune changes is really the main reason why full AP Rakan works. Now, even though full AP Rakan got nerfed multiple times, the kind of new boots and the new rune changes basically makes up for those nerfs, because previously you didn't have the mana boots to give you the 8 magic penetration, and previously you couldn't really take sudden impact and mark of the week, like all those kinds of things together, because they were, of course, mark of the week didn't even exist, and sudden impact was competing on the domination slot with a lot of other runes like weakness, for example, which is what you would normally take. So now that the rune system has changed to this way, now you actually have pretty much equal damage to full AP Rakan pre-nerfs. So of course we go for Electrocute for the one-shot potential onto a squishy target. We go for sudden impact to get the 13 magic penetration when we go in. Of course, Rakan is always going to dash in with either his E or his W, so your sudden impact is pretty much always going to be up. Then Mark of the Week, of course, because we're of course a combo kind of burst mage in this kind of build, so you want to get that for the increased damage when you're bursting someone down. And I like to go for Eyeball Collector to, of course, get my AP when I stack up 10 times. Now you could also go for Zombie Ward in this position, but I find Zombie Ward is really unreliable in solo queue because a lot of times your team doesn't give you the ward kills and it's really hard to stack up. Finally, for the secondary rune, I like to go for, of course, Transcendence. This gives me more ability haze, gets my abilities out more often, and of course reduces the cooldown on my abilities when I hit them. This is especially useful for a W, to reduce your W cooldown. Now, if you want to go for something more defensive, you could, of course, also go for something like Bone Plating or even something like Overgrowth, but I think Transcendence is generally the best option. And since you're playing full AP Rakan, you always want to go for Flash and Ignite, because Ignite, especially in the early game, is going to allow you to get a lot of extra kills that you may not be able to get if you didn't have it. But with all that out the way, let's jump into talking about the gameplay for full AP Rakan. Okay, so now moving on to the gameplay. Now, as usual, of course, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And any questions, queries, or remarks, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Now, I have a lot of things to talk about full AP Rakan, a lot of like tips and tricks and content to cover. And first off, we're going to start off with a control ward. So as you guys know, normally it's a good idea to control ward this bush. So if your ADC didn't take the control ward, which normally they should, then you want to take a control ward to put in this bush to secure this bush. And the reason why securing this bush is important is because as a Rakan, you can sometimes use this bush to catch enemies off guard and jump from inside this bush with your W. So the second thing I want to cover is the leveling order. Generally, a normal Rakan maxes W followed by E followed by Q. But on full AP Rakan, you want to max your W first as usual, but you want to max your Q second and your E last. So before we get into that, you can see here that we spot an opportunity to go in and kill the Varus. I'm going to talk more about that later, but I'm first going to cover the leveling order as I mentioned. So with Rakan AP, you want to max W, then Q, then E. And the reason why you want to do that is because it ties in with the goal of AP Rakan. You guys saw what I did just now, which is basically the goal of AP Rakan is you are the team's main engage, hopefully onto multiple people, and your goal is to engage and one-shot one squishy target. So you can see in this case that one squishy target that I'm going in on is going to be the Varus, and in later on team fights, it normally should be the Varus, so it could be the Vladimir or you know, whoever else is a squishy target in your match, but your goal is to go in and one-shot the squishy target. So the main reason why you want to max your Q second is it ties in with your identity of one-shotting a target. So you go in with your ulti into W, into Q onto the squishy target is going to prompt your electrocute, and that guy that you use your Q on should get one shot, and that guy should be your squishy target. That's why you want to, of course, you know, do what I said, which is to max your Q second. So the main important thing to keep in mind when you're playing AP Rakan is when should you engage. And to know when you should engage, there is basically 3 points you want to take into account. The first point you want to take into account is evaluating the damage you and whoever is with you can do, and also the damage that the enemy team can do, because you don't want to die. So here you can see just now when I went in on the Gragas and the Varus, the main reason I did that is because I evaluated that me and Jhin can kill. Why can we kill? Because number one, Varus is squishy. Number two, Jhin does a lot of damage in the early game. Number 3, both me and Jin have Electrocute. So we both proc Electrocute on Varus, and we basically, two of us together, can essentially one-shot him together with my Ignite, which is exactly what happened just now. And throughout the game, you want to evaluate whether you and whoever's with you has enough damage. So for example, if later I roam to mid, I have to evaluate if, for example, me and Annie have enough damage to one-shot the Vladimir when he's inside the CC before he goes into his pool, for example. So that is what you always want to evaluate. Another thing you might want to evaluate is how much damage does the enemy team do. You know, do they do enough damage to one-shot you when you go in? Most of the time the answer is no, because they should be in CC and you should be able to escape. So this normally isn't too much of an issue. This ties in with my second point of what you want to take into account when you're going in, which is whether can you escape. So this normally ties in with whether you have your E up and whether there's anyone to jump to. Generally, if there isn't anyone to jump to with your E, you generally don't want to go in because you're going to go in and die. Sometimes you can do this to sacrifice yourself to get a kill. Either you trade with them 1-for-1, or if there's someone together with you next to you, sometimes you can go in without your E and then that person can get the kill. Sometimes you end up dying. Sometimes that is fine because after all, you are the support, and trading 1-for-1, someone killing you and your teammates getting the kill could be worth it sometimes. And the last thing to take into account, which is probably the most important thing, is your cooldowns. So you want to see if you have your cooldowns. Now, if you don't have your cooldowns up, most notably your E, you never want to go in. Of course, you're going in with your W, so if your W is not up in the first place, there's no way you're going in, because what you're going to do, R and flash into the team, most of the time that's not a good idea. So if your W is not up, you can never go in. If your W is up and your E is not up, most of the time you should not go in because you need your E to get back out. Unless, of course, as I mentioned just now, you're planning to go in and sacrifice yourself for the good of the team, then you can go in with only your W, but most of the time you need your W and your E to be up. Of course, later on you want to factor in if your ulti is up as well, because obviously the main combo for Rakan, as we covered in our basic guide, is to go in first with R, then W, and then etc. And then when you need to, go out with your E. So if your R is not up, you're going to be doing a lot less damage, and your W is a lot harder to hit because the enemy team is not charmed. So those are the main things that you want to take into account. And of course, don't feel pressured to go in if your team is pinging you to go in, or if something like that happens, because only you will know your damage evaluation, your cooldowns, and such. Your teammates are not going to know your cooldowns. So sometimes they want you to go in, but you're going to die from going in. Then it's up to you to make the decision as to whether you should go in or not. And I'm going to show you an example of this later because it does happen in this game. So anyways, now that we talked about all of those kind of advice to play AP Rakan, now we're going to focus a little bit more on the gameplay. Of course, we did miss out on a couple of kills already. Here you can see Jin hits the root. I'm going in, basically just one-shotting the Varus with my combo. Here I get the Ignite onto Gragas, which I realize is going to get the kill, so I'm going to back away from the tower, and you can see the Ignite value coming in this particular instance. So one thing you can do is you can actually heal off objectives with your Q, because it does proc onto objectives as well. And here we're able to secure the dragon. So here, something you do want to take note of is, as Rakan, you don't necessarily always want to stick with your ADC. You can roam to mid or roam to Herald, or just roam anywhere, because you are of course a very powerful engage, and a lot of times the enemy team is not going to expect you to roam, and they're going to get killed. So here you can see we know Varus is going to ult us, so we're going to actually just dodge the ult. We're going to tank the tower for the Jin. And here you can see I already used my cooldowns. I used my E and I used my W. And here you can see Jin is pinging me to go in. And here you can see I'm pinging him back. And here, of course, this is a replay, but in the chat he's basically just flaming me and saying that I'm way too scared to go in, and I'm a trash support, that kind of thing. And I just give him the question mark emote, because why? I know that I can't go in. Why can't I go in? I've just used my W and I've just used my E. There's literally nothing I can do. The only thing I could have done there is to maybe E towards the Jin and give him a shield. But I think the most likely scenario there is likely I'm going to guarantee die. I don't know if Jin is going to survive. That's a question mark. So I don't want to go in because I have no W, and I only have one charge of E left. So here I spot an opportunity with the Jin coming in here. So here I'm going for the Pantheon, the one shot on the Pantheon. I get the Electrocute, Jin finishes off the kill. Of course, with the standard Rakan combo, I'm going to E towards him to chase the Gragas. Gragas is, of course, running towards the jungle. I'm trying to hit my Q, but Gragas flashes the wall. I'm going to E over the wall, ignite him, and that guarantees the kill. Not Lee Sin. Jin picks up the kill. Unfortunately, though, I get hit by the Varus combo, and I do end up dying. But overall, the trade here was my life for 3 kills on Jin, which, as I said, of course, as a support, is always a trade that is, you're going to be willing to take. Even though, of course, this Jin is, of course, flaming me, but he is still 6 1 and 4. So he's still at this point in time the main win condition of my team. So we want to be objective, and we want to play towards the main win condition of the team, even though he is a little bit toxic, a little bit flaming. He does eventually actually appreciate our efforts, and he does actually later on go on to say that he does like us as a support, but really who cares about his opinion, right? So anyways, we're gonna continue on to talk about how Rakan should be played. Here you can see we're setting a trap together with Yone. We combo with Yone's CC with the full combo and everything. I don't ult initially because we can kill him without the ult, but when Vladimir comes in, I pop the ult to CC the Vladimir. Here I'm trying to jump over to CC the Pantheon, and we don't even have to actually do that because he does ends up dying without us. So here's the next important point that I have not yet pointed out, which is the sweeper. Look at what I'm doing here. I'm sweeping and clearing out all these wards. And the main reason you want to do this is because you don't want the enemy team to see you coming. You want to hide in the bush, or you want to hide out of vision, and then you want to come in and engage on them when they're least expecting it. If you have like normal wards or control wards, this is really difficult to do. But if you have the sweeper, this is really easy to do because sweeper cooldown is really low, at least compared to like the other kinds of wards. And doing this is going to allow you to basically be out of vision, and it's going to allow you to basically do what you want to. So here you can see Vladimir over chases, and this is what I'm talking about. You always want to evaluate the opportunities. I can see here clearly Vladimir has decided to over chase. His team is not following him. Me and Jin together can easily one-shot him, so I instantly just go in on him. Now here I am just hovering the Annie and Darius to ensure they can secure the tower. So if anyone comes here, we're going to see them coming. You can see that I'm getting vision of the Pantheon. I can easily just hop over the wall with my W like that. I'm never going to be in danger. Even if he decides to stun me and full combo me, I'm never going to die in this instance. So sometimes you can use yourself as a living ward to just help your team to secure vision. So here we already have Ludens, we already have the Mana Protobelt, we are going into the Prophet's Pendant, and we're getting into that kind of territory where we're doing a lot of damage. Here I'm just going to pick up the blue buff since no one else is going to, and I spot a fight happening, so I'm trying to get to the fight immediately. Here unfortunately my team is kind of dying, and I'm going to go in here with the full combo. I pretty much get a CC onto everybody, dodge the Varus ulti, and yeah, so here I have no cooldown. So here you can see I'm just walking around waiting for my cooldowns to come back up and seeing if there's any opportunity. And here, I'm waiting. I'm popping the sweeper to make sure that, they can't see me. I probably should have walked the other way around the river instead of through the minions, but here we're just trying to spot opportunity. Here I spot Varus slightly out of position, Protobelt forward, and basically just get a one-shot on him. I mean, he wasn't, it's not a 100-0 one-shot, but he was at 75% health. And you can see Protobelt for the engage, instant one-shot onto the Varus with the electrocute, and he's basically just gone. That's what AP Rakan can do, and this is the main reason I feel AP Rakan is so much better than like the utility Rakan. Because the utility Rakan gives you a lot of utility, yes, but the AP Rakan gives you utility by just one-shotting a squishy target out of existence. Like, they basically don't exist, and best form of CC is death, right? So we're just gonna one-shot them and be done with it. So here a very messy dragon fight breaks out. Here I'm going in once again. I'm popping out a little bit late because initially I was only engaging onto one target. Here I'm running around waiting for my cooldowns to come back up. I hit my Q, my W's back up. I'm gonna go here and I'm gonna dodge the Varus out using my E onto the Yone and avoiding that Varus ulti, and then we're just going to escape after getting the dragon together with 3 kills. So honestly, you can really see how this is a better than 100% Rakan performance. We're putting Rakan to his full potential, getting the engages, getting the one-shots like this one, for example, together with the Jin. And also, we're using his E to the fullest potential, using it to dodge spells. We already dodged like Varus ulti twice with our E, and yeah, really this is how you want to play Rakan. Whether you're playing him AP or not, the playstyle is still the same. Even when you're playing utility Rakan, you still do the same steps of evaluating whether you and whoever you're with can, one-shot someone. Speaking of one-shotting, here Gragas walks into 4 of us and gets instantly blown up. Little Poro spots me into the bush recalling, but I'm just going to complete the recall because I can complete my Infinity Orb at this point in time. And thankfully my team is not taking a fight when I'm not there. And yeah, currently we're doing very well. We're 3-1 and 17. Of course, we're giving the kills to our carries if we can. Of course, if we just end up one-shotting people like what we did just now, we're going to pick up the kill, not too big of a deal. You can see that our 2 main carries, Yone and Jin, are both very fed at 11k gold. And, we're getting the goal and into them very, very well. And, we're, of course, playing towards our main win conditions. Remember that despite the fact you're building AP, you're not the carry. You're building AP for the quote-unquote utility of one-shotting a squishy target. But at the end of the day, you're still the support. You're still the main CC for your team like this. You're still just supposed to CC them and let your carries kill them like this. You're not supposed to steal their kills. You're not supposed to be the carry yourself. And here, once again, we're following the Jin, waiting for our cooldowns. Now our cooldowns come back up. 3-man engage into the enemy team, and then dash back out with our E, and Jin manages to finish off another kill. Now Jin pops the ulti, goes for the Vladimir. Vladimir does go down here, going for the CC. Once again, was not even needed. Jin picks up another triple kill. And at this point, it's a free Baron. Enemies are all dead aside from Varus. And here, you know, Sweeper to check the Baron pit for vision. Yone just pops on the control ward even though I already swept the pit, so kind of a waste of the control ward there. But basically, as I mentioned, it's a free Baron here. Off of that beautiful team fight and beautiful 3-man engage from me. And our team is able to secure the free Baron. So here we're going to reset, start building towards death cap, which we're almost there at this point. And with the Baron buff, we can of course just push down the lanes. Now with this new vision plan, you always want to pop it when it's up, because you can basically check if there's any vision in your own jungle, and you will know that if you got spotted in your jungle, which is very important when you're playing any champ, not just Rakan, not just support, any champ in the game. So here, ideally, we want to split up. So you can see, for some reason, Yone is farming the jungle, which is a complete waste of time. Darius does go bot, and he does go top. This is very, very ideal. Yone decides to go in and pick a fight despite having no vision of anyone in the enemy team. Thankfully, me and Jin are around to help him out. Here, I'm going to engage onto these two with my ulti. I know that they're dead, so I'm going to not waste it, and I'm going to go ahead and go onto this Vladimir instead together with the Darius, and we are able to pick up all 3 of those kills. Now only Ornn and Varus are left, and this is an angle to push and end the game. Only the 2 of them are left, and it's going to be really hard for them to actually defend here. Ornn tries to go in on the 2 of us. I'm going to give the shield. He tries to flash forward. But, you know, with the shields from me as well as together with the heals, you can see that Ornn can't have enough damage to kill Darius. Honestly, those huge shields and heals from the full AP build is really coming into effect here. I think a normal Rakan would have way much more trouble trying to keep this Darius alive. And basically, even though there's a Nexus shield at this point, we're 5 members strong, basically able to end the game. But before we do that, you know, why not just pick up an extra kill on the Pantheon over here, who decided to brazenly ult behind us. And there is the victory, and this is how you play better than 100% of Rakan. So hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. We're going to leave you guys with the stats as usual. So thank you guys so much for watching the video, and goodbye.